All right, so we're going to dive into something pretty interesting today.
Okay.
You're interested in the housing and urban development scene over in India.
Right?
Specifically, you want to see how HDCO's doing right.
Yeah.
Their latest quarterly results, Q2 of FY25, just came out,
Yep.
and we're going to unpack all that and see what it all means for the bigger picture.
Absolutely. We're going to break down HDCO's performance
Yeah.
in a way that's relevant to your interest in this sector.
Perfect. Now, for anyone who might not be familiar, HDCO stands for Housing and Urban Development Corporation, Ltd.
Right.
They've been around for over 50 years.
Yeah, a major player.
And they do a lot more than just giving out loans.
That's right.
They consult, they build capacity,
Mm-hmm.
they're involved in all kinds of housing and infrastructure projects across India.
Yeah, and they're deeply tied to major government initiatives like Housing for All and smart cities.
Okay, so to guide our deep dive today, we've got a few things on the table.
Okay.
We've got the press release announcing HDCO's results. We got a presentation they put together for investors.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got a set of questions to really guide our analysis.
Right.
By the end of this, you'll have a solid grasp of how HUD-DC is doing, where they stand in the market, and what it all means for the future of housing and urban development in India.
Sounds good.
So to get this deep dive going, why don't we start by looking at some of the highlights from HUD-DCO's Q2 FY25 results.
Okay, sure.
What were some of the things that jumped out at you?
Well, the first thing that really impressed me was just how active they've been.
Oh, yeah.
Their sanctions and disbursements.
Mm-hmm.
The loans they've approved and given out are at an all-time high for a half-year period.
Wow, that's a lot of activity.
Yeah, it is a really positive sign for the company.
Mm-hmm.
That activity translates directly to their financial success.
Okay.
Their profit after tax is also at an all-time high for the first half of the fiscal year.
Uh-huh.
And so is their revenue from operations?
So they're busy and making money.
Exactly.
That's a pretty powerful combo.
To give you a better idea, their loan book has grown by 36% compared to last year.
Wow.
And get this, their market capitalization has jumped 2.53 times in just 1 year.
That's huge.
It is huge.
Now, here's something that really caught my eye.
Okay.
Their asset quality.
Right.
They're claiming the lowest non-performing assets, or NPAs, in the entire industry.
Yeah.
That's a really good sign.
Yeah, that means they're very careful about who they lend to and how they manage risk.
It sounds like they're in a very strong position.
Yes.
What do you think is driving all this success?
Well, a few key factors.
Okay.
First, they have deep expertise and a ton of experience.
Right.
They've been in this business for a long time,
Yeah.
so they understand the market really well.
That experience must be priceless,
Absolutely.
especially when you're dealing with government projects.
Another key factor is their diverse loan portfolio.
Okay.
They finance both housing and infrastructure projects
That makes sense.
and spreads their risk
Mm-hmm.
and lets them tap into different growth areas.
And they seem to be in a great financial position overall.
Yeah,
Their credit rating is top-notch,
that's right.
AAA domestically, on par with the sovereign rating internationally.
It shows a lot of trust and confidence in HUD-DCO from the market,
Right.
which allows them to borrow money at more favorable rates.
And I imagine their reach across India is a big plus too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Having a presence all over the country
Mm-hmm.
must give them a deeper understanding of what different regions need.
Absolutely.
It's interesting that they're not just about financing projects.
Right.
They're also very focused on adding value through services like training and consultancy.
Yeah, this is key.
Hmm.
They want to empower their clients with the knowledge and skills to succeed.
So all these strengths combined,
Right.
the diverse portfolio,
Uh-huh.
the financial stability, the pan-India presence, and the focus on value-added services
Yeah,
have all come together to deliver these really impressive financial results.
exactly. It's a powerful combination.
To really understand how they're achieving this, I think we need to take a closer look at their loan portfolio
Okay.
and see where they're focusing their lending activities.
Right.
Looking at the numbers, one thing that really jumps out is the shift in their loan portfolio towards urban infrastructure projects.
Yeah, you're right. It's fascinating to see that urban infrastructure now makes up 53% of their loan portfolio, surpassing affordable housing.
So that's a significant change.
This shift reflects a broader trend in India, where the government is prioritizing the development of smart cities and improving urban amenities.
Can you give us some concrete examples of the types of urban infrastructure projects they're financing?
Sure, we're talking about essential infrastructure like hospitals, metro systems, water supply networks, roads and highways and even ports.
Wow, so these are the building blocks of modern functional cities.
Exactly.
And it's worth noting that 98% of HUD-GEO's loan book is dedicated to the government and its agencies,
Right.
with 77% of those loans actually guaranteed by the government.
That's a great observation.
That explains their incredibly strong asset quality.
Yeah, lending primarily to government entities reduces their exposure to risk.
Okay, so we've got a good picture of what they're lending money for.
Okay.
Now let's talk about where HUD-CO is getting the money to lend in the first place.
Right.
How do they manage their borrowing and interest rates?
HUD-GCO taps into multiple funding sources,
Okay.
both within India and internationally.
So this diversification gives them
Yeah.
flexibility
Yeah.
and helps them manage costs effectively.
Exactly.
And this is where their recent move into international markets gets really interesting.
Yeah,
They secured a loan from Japan for 94 billion.
that's a lot of yen.
That's a lot of yen.
Yes.
And an FCNRB loan for US $830 million.
Right.
The most interesting part is they got both of these loans at super favorable rates,
That's a big deal.
5.5%
Yeah.
and 6.03%.
It shows that international investors have confidence in HUD-GCO. Because they got these loans at such low rates, they can pass on those savings to the people and projects they're financing in India.
It's a win-win.
Exactly.
Now, there's another interesting development that could work in their favor.
Okay.
The Indian government has announced a lower borrowing target for FY25.
Right.
This could lead to lower interest rates in the bond market.
Yeah. Which would be good news for HUD-GCO.
So if interest rates go down,
Mm-hmm.
that means they can potentially offer even more affordable loans
Exactly.
for housing and urban development projects.
It really highlights how interconnected all these factors are.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've seen how well HUD-CO is performing financially.
Yes.
We've explored their diverse loan portfolio and strategic borrowing approach.
Mm-hmm.
And we've even touched on some of the external factors that could affect their business.
That's right. We've laid a solid foundation.
But there's so much more to explore.
Yeah.
Specifically, how does all of this tie into the future of HUD-CO and the broader urban development goals of India?
That's exactly what we'll delve into next.
Sounds good.
We'll look at the huge opportunities ahead for HUD-GCO, especially considering India's ambition to become a $7 trillion economy by 2030
Okay.
and a developed nation by 2047.
It sounds like HUD-CO is right in the middle of all that,
They are.
playing a critical role in achieving those goals.
Yes.
I'm excited to see what insights we uncover as we continue this deep dive.
Me too.
There's a lot more to unpack.
Yeah, let's keep going. So you're probably wondering how HUD-GCO is actually going to contribute to those ambitious goals, of India becoming a $7 trillion economy and a developed nation.
Exactly. How does that translate into real-world impact?
Well, a big part of it is through their involvement in major government initiatives.
Okay.
One of the most significant is the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana,
Oh, yeah?
or PMAY 2.0.
Which is like Prime Minister's housing scheme or something like that.
That's right.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
It's aimed at providing affordable housing to all urban and rural households by 2024.
Mm-hmm.
HUD-GCO is playing a key role in financing this program.
Right.
They provide the financial muscle to get these projects off the ground.
So it's not just about building houses.
No, it's about building sustainable communities.
Right.
And that brings us to another interesting development. HUD-GCO's recent registration as an NBFC-IFC.
Okay, now I know that sounds like a bunch of jargon,
It does.
but tell me why that's important.
NBFC stands for Non-Banking Financial Company, and IFC stands for Infrastructure Finance Company.
Okay.
This registration basically broadens their scope of operations
Whoa.
and allows them to finance a wider range of projects.
So they're not just limited to housing anymore.
That's right. They're expanding their horizons
Mm.
and aligning themselves with the government's broader push for infrastructure development.
It sounds like they're setting themselves up for even greater success in the future.
Yeah, especially considering the government's plans to invest $1.43 trillion in infrastructure over the next 7 years.
That's a lot of money.
It is huge investments in roads, railways, urban infrastructure, energy, and transportation.
Wow.
This is where HUD-GCO's expertise and financial strength really come into play.
So it's exciting to think about the impact they can have, not just on the economy,
Right.
but also on people's lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about connecting people to opportunities, improving access to essential services, and creating a more sustainable and inclusive future for India.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the positive aspects of
Yeah.
Hadusi's performance,
Hmm.
but no business is without its challenges, right?
You're right. Every business faces challenges.
What are some of the hurdles they might face in the coming years?
Well, one potential risk is the rising interest rate environment we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
If interest rates continue to rise,
Mm-hmm.
it could squeeze their profit margins.
That's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
What about competition?
Right?
The housing finance sector in India is pretty competitive.
You're right. The competition is fierce.
How can Hatiso stay ahead of the pack?
Well, they have a few aces up their sleeves.
Okay.
Their long-standing relationships with government agencies
Mm-hmm.
give them an edge when it comes to securing projects.
Right. They're really trying to be a one-stop shop for all things housing and urban development.
Exactly. And let's not forget their focus on asset quality.
Mm-hmm.
Their low NPAs are a testament to that.
So while there are challenges, it seems like they're well equipped to handle them.
Exactly. They're not just reacting to market changes.
Okay.
They're actively anticipating and adapting,
Right.
which is crucial for long-term success.
Now I want to circle back to something you said earlier.
Okay.
You mentioned that one of their biggest challenges could be balancing growth with sustainability.
Yeah, it's like this. As HTCO expands its operations, especially in the infrastructure space,
Mm-hmm.
it's crucial that they don't just focus on building more. They need to build responsibly.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between economic development and environmental protection.
Exactly. It's about making sure that the projects they finance benefit communities without harming the environment.
Right.
And this isn't just a challenge. It's also a huge opportunity for HUD-DCO.
Oh, how so?
They can become a leader in sustainable urban development, showing the world how to build cities that are both modern and eco-friendly.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities.
They have the potential to set the standard for sustainable urban development, not just in India, but globally.
Now, before we get too carried away with the future,
Right.
let's take a step back
Okay.
and revisit those thought-provoking questions we had at the beginning of this deep dive.
Yeah.
They'll help us connect the dots
Okay.
and really crystallize what we've learned.
Sounds good.
So the first question on our list,
Okay.
what were the key highlights of HUD-DCO's Q2 FY25 financial results?
Right.
And how do they compare to previous quarters? Well, we've already covered this in detail.
We have.
And the short answer is they've been smashing it.
Right. We saw their record-breaking sanctions and disbursements, their all-time high profits and revenue, and their impressive loan book growth.
And let's not forget their incredibly low NPAs,
Absolutely.
which really highlights their commitment to responsible lending.
These highlights show that they're in a very strong financial position and are executing their growth strategy effectively.
Okay, the next question.
Right.
How should DCO's revenue figures in Q2 FY25 reflect the company's overall growth strategy? Again, we touched on this.
They did.
Their revenue growth is a direct result of their increased lending activity
Right.
and their ability to maintain a healthy interest spread.
Exactly. They've been very strategic in diversifying their loan portfolio, focusing on government-backed projects and tapping into international markets.
Right, and this growth is perfectly aligned with their vision of being a key player in India's ambitious infrastructure development plan.
Exactly. They're not just growing for the sake of growing.
Right.
They're growing in a way that contributes to the nation's development goals.
All right, moving on.
Okay.
The next question asks, what were the profit margins reported in this quarter?
Right.
And what factors contributed to any changes compared to Q1 FY25?
Okay.
We know their profitability has been excellent.
It has. What's the secret sauce?
A key factor here is their ability to manage their interest spread effectively.
Right.
They need to make sure that the interest they earn on the loans they give out is higher than the interest they're paying on the money they've borrowed.
Right. So they're making smart lending decisions,
Exactly.
making sure they're earning more than they're paying out.
And their focus on government-backed projects has also helped them maintain those healthy profit margins.
Okay. The next question is particularly relevant.
Okay.
Given their record-breaking loan disbursements,
All right.
it asks, how did the loan disbursement figures in Q2 FY25 align with the company's targets
Right.
and the current demand in the housing sector?
Okay.
It's clear they're exceeding their targets
Yeah.
and meeting the growing demand for housing and infrastructure financing. Their performance here shows that they have a deep understanding of the market and are able to identify and capitalize on emerging opportunities.
It also highlights their commitment to supporting the government's vision of housing for all and developing world-class infrastructure.
They're playing a crucial role in making those goals a reality.
Okay, let's tackle a slightly more complex question.
All right.
It asks, how did external market conditions,
Okay.
such as interest rates and regulatory changes,
Right.
impact HUTO's performance this quarter?
Mm-hmm.
We've touched on this already.
I have.
While the rising interest rate environment poses a potential challenge, HUTO has managed it well so far.
Their diversified borrowing profile, their strong credit rating, and their strategic approach to managing interest rate risk have helped them navigate this challenging environment.
And what about regulatory changes?
HUTPO has been very proactive in adapting to the evolving regulatory landscape.
Okay.
Their recent NBFC-IFC registration is a great example of that.
Right.
It allows them to expand their operations and tap into new funding sources.
So they're not just reacting to changes, they're staying ahead of the curve
Exactly.
and turning potential challenges into opportunities.
That's a hallmark of a successful and resilient organization.
Now let's zoom out a bit
Okay.
and consider the bigger picture.
Right.
The next question asks, what insights can we gather about the housing and urban development sector?
Right.
Based on HUD-CO's results this quarter, their strong performance is a clear indication of the robust growth in the sector.
Absolutely. Their record lending figures reflect the increasing demand for housing and infrastructure financing,
Right.
driven by factors like population growth, rapid urbanization, and government initiatives aimed at boosting economic growth.
Their focus on urban infrastructure projects also highlights the government's commitment to building smart and sustainable cities.
Right. HUD-CO's activities provide a glimpse into the key trends shaping the future of urban development in India.
Okay, let's shift our focus to the future. The next question is, how does HUD-CO plan to leverage its financial results for future investments in urban infrastructure projects? We've already established that they're expanding their footprint in the infrastructure space.
Right.
But how will they fund this growth?
Their strong financial performance gives them the capital and the confidence to invest heavily in urban infrastructure.
Right, and their recent foray into the international market,
Yes.
securing those favorable loans we talked about earlier, is a key part of their funding strategy.
Exactly. And their NBFC-IFC registration opens up even more avenues for raising funds.
So they're really well positioned to capitalize on the huge infrastructure investment opportunities that are coming up.
They are.
Now, let's not shy away from the potential challenges.
Okay.
The next question asks,
Right.
what were some of the major challenges HUD-CO faced in Q2 FY25,
Right.
and how might they address these moving forward? We've already discussed the potential impact of rising interest rates.
Yes. And while they've handled it well so far, it's something they'll need to monitor closely and adapt their strategies as needed.
Competition is another challenge we touched on earlier.
It is.
How can they stay ahead in a crowded market?
Their focus on value-added services, their deep understanding of government projects, and their strong relationships with key stakeholders will all be crucial in maintaining their competitive edge.
And their commitment to sustainability could also be a key differentiator.
That's a great point.
More and more clients are prioritizing environmentally and socially responsible development.
Absolutely.
And HUD-CO is well positioned to meet that demand.
As sustainability becomes more important, HUD-CO's focus on it could give them a significant advantage.
Okay, the next question is all about looking ahead.
Right.
It asks, based on the Q2 FY25 results, what is the outlook for HUD-CO for the remainder of FY25?
Okay.
All signs point to continued success.
There's strong momentum, there's strategic vision, and the robust growth in the sector all suggest a very positive outlook for the rest of the fiscal year.
It'll be interesting to see how they continue to leverage their strengths and navigate the evolving market dynamics.
Absolutely. We'll be watching closely to see how they perform.
Now let's shift gears and talk about market perception.
Okay.
The next question asks, how have investors reacted to the Q2 FY25 financial results? And what does this indicate about market confidence in HUD-CO?
All right.
Well, their stock price has been on a tear lately, which is a pretty clear sign of investor confidence.
Their impressive financial performance, their strong growth prospects, and their strategic alignment with the government's priorities have all made them a favorite among investors.
And their commitment to sustainability is also resonating with investors.
Absolutely.
Who are increasingly prioritizing ESG factors. Now, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance.
Right.
It's become a major focus for investors who want to make sure their money is going towards companies that are doing good for the world.
It's no longer just about profits.
Right.
Investors are looking at the bigger picture.
Okay, let's dive a little deeper into their sustainability initiatives.
Right.
The next question asks, how are HUD-CO's financial results tied to its commitments towards sustainable urban development?
Okay.
We've established that sustainability is a core value for them.
It is.
But how does it actually translate into financial performance?
Well, for one thing, their focus on sustainability attracts clients who are looking to develop projects that are environmentally and socially responsible.
Right.
This leads to more business opportunities for HUD-DCO.
No, and their sustainable projects often qualify for more favorable financing terms.
That's right.
From institutions that prioritize green investments.
So their commitment to sustainability is not just a feel-good thing.
Right.
It's actually a smart business strategy.
Okay, the final question on our list.
Right.
How do HUD-DCO's financial results stack up against its competitors in the housing finance sector this quarter? We haven't done a detailed side-by-side comparison.
Yeah.
But from what we've seen, HUD-DCO seems to be a clear leader in the sector.
Their impressive financials, their strong growth, and their solid asset quality all set them apart from their competitors.
Their unique focus on government-backed projects
Right.
and their expertise in navigating the complexities of the public sector also give them a distinct advantage.
They've really carved out a niche for themselves, combining financial savvy with a deep understanding of the development landscape in India.
Well, these questions have really helped us understand HUD-DCO's performance
They have.
and what it means for the future of housing and urban development in India.
I agree. It's been a fascinating deep dive.
Now, before we wrap things up, I want to bring it back to that thought-provoking question we posed earlier.
Okay.
What do you see as the biggest challenge and the most exciting opportunity for HUD-DCO in the next 5 years?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I think one of their biggest challenges will be managing the risks that come with rapid growth.
That makes a lot of sense.
Expanding too quickly can sometimes lead to problems.
Yeah, rapid growth can sometimes lead to overstretching
Right.
and increased exposure to risk.
But on the other hand, that same growth presents a tremendous opportunity.
Okay.
They have the potential to become a real trailblazer in sustainable urban development.
So it's a balancing act.
It is.
They'll need to find that sweet spot between aggressive growth and careful risk management.
Precisely. And if they can strike that balance, they can truly revolutionize the way cities are developed in India and beyond.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
I agree.
HUD-DCO is clearly a company to keep an eye on in the coming years.
I agree. Their evolution from a specialized housing financier
Right.
to a major player in the infrastructure landscape is truly remarkable.
This has been a fantastic exploration of HUD-DCO's Q2 FY25 results.
It has.
And what they mean for the future of housing and urban development in India.
I hope our listeners have enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have.
Now, before we say goodbye,
Okay.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Right.
As we've seen, HUD-DCO is playing a crucial role in building a better future for India.
They are.
But they're not doing it alone.
That's an important point.
It's a collective effort involving government agencies, private developers, local communities, and individuals.
Right?
It takes a village, right?
It does.
And it's up to each of us to play our part in building a more sustainable, equitable, and prosperous future for all Indians.
That's a powerful message to end on.
As you go about your day, think about how you can contribute to that vision.
Yeah.
Even small actions can make a big difference.
It reminds us that creating a better future isn't just the responsibility of big companies or the government. It's a shared responsibility.
Well said.
Thank you.
And with that, it's time to wrap up this deep dive on HUD-DCO.
Okay.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the world around you.
And remember, even small actions can create big ripples of change.
That's your deep dive on HUD-DCO. Until next time, keep diving.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to see how HUD-DCO is combining financial success with a real commitment to building a better India.
I agree. It's not just about the numbers. It's about the impact they represent.
Right, like better housing, improved infrastructure, and a better quality of life for people.
Exactly.
This deep dive has really given us a lot to think about.
It has.
We've seen how HUD-DCO is playing a key role in shaping India's urban landscape, and we've explored those exciting opportunities and challenges that lie ahead.
We've unpacked a lot.
Yeah, we've analyzed their strategic moves, we've delved into the key trends driving the housing and urban development sector in India.
We covered a lot of ground.
But before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Okay.
We've talked about HUD-DCO's achievements, their strategies, their role in the larger ecosystem. But what about you?
That's a great question.
What about your role?
Yeah, we've focused on HUD-DCO, but the future of urban development in India is a shared responsibility. As individuals, we might not be financing massive infrastructure projects.
Right.
But we can still make a difference.
Absolutely.
We can support sustainable practices in our own lives. We can advocate for a responsible development in our communities, and we can make informed choices as consumers and citizens.
It's about recognizing that we're all part of this journey towards a better future.
Well said. And with that thought in mind, it's time to wrap up this deep dive on HUD KO. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world around you.
And remember, even small actions can create big ripples of change.
That's your deep dive on HUD KO. Until next time, keep diving.